Hello and welcome to Birken Forest Monastery live stream. I'm Ajahn Sona, and this is an opportunity for questions and answers. And let's start with the first question, Pia.
Ajahn, our first question is from Is it ever ethically justified in Buddhism to disregard socially conventional norms or laws for the sake of relieving another being of mental or physical pain? Or is a Buddhist follower meant to abide by these social conventions at all times? What would be the proper course of action? What would the proper course of action be, and at what point does it become the Buddhist's responsibility to help another being?
Well, there's some vagueness in the question about what it means to help another being or reduce the suffering of another being if it's not within the law. So I hope you're not talking about euthanasia or something like this. But if you're talking about, there was a time when, for instance, slavery was the law, and people were owned and so forth. And then if people escaped, then some people harbored them, which was against the law, and some people would turn them in, which was within the law. However, in the case from a Buddhist conscience point of view, one could harbor an escaped slave or assist them in freedom, which would be perhaps against the law, but it would be ethically all right. Even for monks, it's possible to release an animal from a trap if they're trapped, and the hunter perhaps regards that animal as their property, but one could release it. So there's a number of cases of conscience over conventional law. And this happens regularly in various societies because laws are sometimes unjust. And of course, there's danger in this because everybody gets to decide what they think is the right thing, and then the social structure falls apart if people aren't willing to abide by the law. In the Sangha, the monastic Sangha, there are all kinds of little rules that monks agree to follow, and some of them are not all that meaningful or moral. They're simply convention. And it's kind of a training for monks to simply surrender to the rules and follow them, as instead of just going on your own preferences and impulses. It's quite a good training to abide within them. And it's also a training in mindfulness to remember them and to train oneself to follow them. This is something like a dance. Now, there are two types of dances. One is one that's completely pre-structured, so a square dance or various kind of formal dances with groups of people. You all have to remember your steps and so forth. You don't do your own thing. And then there's another type of dance, which is just make it up as you go along. So if you're in the dance, the cultural dance where everybody learns the steps and follows the steps, then you do your best to follow them and not do your own thing. It's not a moral issue. It's a matter of community harmony. So there are types of rules that are conventional and to do with communal harmony, and then there are types of rules that are intrinsically have moral dimensions to them. So when the moral laws are not moral, then sometimes one transgresses against them. But we have a society at the present time that's very dismissive in some ways of conventions and cultural and communal harmony. And that revolution took place mostly in the West in a lot in the 60s, where everybody was sort of do your own thing. It is more or less the idea of going on your own. It's the lone cowboy riding on the prairie by themselves, and versus the wagon train going across. And it has problems when everybody is being individualistic and just doing their own thing. You see there chaos happens. And extraordinary beauty happens also when people can cooperate. So the London Symphony Orchestra playing Beethoven, I mean, every violinist, every person in the orchestra is reducing their own personal preferences to the instruction of the composer and the conductor, and it produces beauty. But then you have armies that obey generals, and they do immoral acts. So in that case, it's a very unfortunate thing. It produces chaos and evil, doesn't it? So this is where judgment has to be exercised. And yes, lay Buddhists particularly have to examine their conscience, and sometimes in order to help other beings, they do sometimes ignore conventions. That's very brief. That could be a whole talk in itself, and I'm sure one day I will give a whole talk on that. Let's go on to the next question, Pia.
Our next question is from the live stream from AS in Florida, United States. I recently heard a teaching on the Dantabhumi Sutta, MN 125. Could you please speak to taming the senses and 5 hindrances rather than controlling? Our culture is saturated with the idea of control.
Well, the question is not perfectly clear. The difference between taming and controlling is not all that precise. But let me talk about this a little bit. And for those who are new to this, the 5 hindrances are greed, anger, agitation, sloth and heaviness, and doubt, sort of wavering or speculative doubt. And they are problematic. These are problematic emotional states. Not everybody even knows that. What's wrong with anger? What's wrong with greed? So anyway, from a Buddhist point of view, those are problematic. And secondly, the sensory realm. So it's reaction to the sensory realm. The hindrances are involved in reactions to the sensory realm. You like something and you want it. So that's a form of greed. You see the fault in something and you dislike it, and you want it pushed away. You hate it, in other words. So these are the way the Buddha thinks about things, and he encourages people to not merely to observe this or practice being just simply mindful of it. This is, by the way, a very, very common misunderstanding of this, the use of mindfulness. Mindfulness is quite universally taught now, thinking that it's a very good thing, which is the ability to pay attention, I suppose. But mindfulness from a Buddhist context is very specific. It's just an aid to the eradication of the hindrances, and greed, hatred, delusion, etc., are to be overcome, and they are to be replaced by generosity, kindness, and clarity. And mindfulness is the servant of this. Mindfulness itself is a neutral thing. It can be used for good or for evil. So it has to be used skillfully in order to overcome these things. And sometimes, of course, you do need to control. You need to control your temper. You might be very angry, but you can't act on it. You can't just blurt out what you feel. You can't act on what you feel. So sometimes there's active suppression, required in order to have a functioning society. You just can't act out on these things. But can you rid yourself or free yourself from the underlying problems? So these are psychic irritants. These are hindrances, psychic irritants, these 5 hindrances. And the aim is to be free of them, to not to tolerate them or be with them or something like that, or be detached from them. That's impossible. You're either hindered or you're not. You're not hindered and detached from your hindrances. That is just nonsense. So either you're free and enjoying goodwill, or you're trapped and experiencing hostility. This is the stark reality of it. So the society being obsessed by control, actually, I would say it's the opposite. This present society we live in North America is way out of control. The individuals in it are way out of control, and the hindrances dominate the discussion. And because of easy access to infinite amounts of media, people's are further confused and incited to anger and greed, etc. So this society is control is not a problem. It's lack of control is the problem. So to clarify is that within this, if you want to ever be well and happy and peaceful in the midst of this present society, you're going to have to learn to overcome those hindrances. And there are systematic processes by which you do that. And staring at them or merely observing them isn't how it works. It is by removing them, replacing them, other strategies which allow you to arrive in this unhindered freedom. Now, that unhindered freedom doesn't mean you get to do whatever you want. It means that the kind of chaotic impulses have been tamed, and you are fully free, as a concert pianist is fully free to play a sonata by Beethoven because they've disciplined themselves for 15 years. But a person who hasn't done that is not free to play a Beethoven sonata. It won't happen because they haven't put in the previous causes. They can't express the music because they don't have the technical capacity and the sensitivity. So freedom comes from training and learning and being coached by wise people and finding good examples to pull you along in that direction, and that's how it happens. So we'll go on. Of course, please watch other talks by me on this YouTube channel on the hindrances, the 5 hindrances, and the various remedies for them, and a whole long retreat on mindfulness, meaning right mindfulness, Buddhist mindfulness, and right effort. So there's lots of talks for you to investigate.
Our next question is from Anonymous in London, UK. I was diagnosed with kidney failure last year at 31, and I am on dialysis. I am really struggling with the pain. This level of suffering is intense and almost unbearable. May I ask Ajahn Sona for some advice based on the Dhamma to deal with this level of pain?
Well, first of all, my sympathies. At 31, to have that very, very great medical problem is, we all feel for you. Anybody who has a heart and understands empathy feels for you. And I would like, if you can send your photo and name and so forth to the monastery, we're going to put you on our altar, and we're going to practice metta for you, first of all, just to know, so you know that people are sending you the best wishes possible. There's two possibilities with the radiation of goodwill, loving kindness, and so forth. One is that it's somehow effective. It's magically effective. The other is it's just good to know that somebody cares about you, that understands what pain is, and that are empathic and compassionate towards you in that situation, that somebody cares. That itself is a pain reliever, just to know that somebody cares. So for sure, to know that a whole group of people feel very sympathetic to that and that they care about you is to the beginning. And maybe there will be some other effect just of the consciousness of your situation and condition, and that maybe it will be relieved in that sense. Aside from that, there's much advice from the Buddha about this. And the first thing is that this is the terrible state of what it is to have a body, a human body. Lots of people are celebrating it and feeling blessed and everything, but all it takes is some sort of kidney breakdown and you will know it's not a blessing. It's a tremendous burden. And the body is extraordinarily vulnerable in this world. It's very soft in a world full of sharp objects. It's very complex and gushy in a world full of germs and viruses and all kinds of things. Anything goes wrong and it just ricochets through the whole system. And of course, pain circuits are set off and all kinds of... So the Buddha's first observation is there is suffering. And basically, some people are not suffering at the moment, but it's just a matter of time. Nobody gets out of here alive. And everybody is in a continuous process of aging. You may be still young, but even being 13 and then being 15 can be traumatic. It's endless change, uncertainty, and vulnerability. So we accept that, and you start saying, well, the best way to do this is not to be mad about it or anything like this, to just take a deep breath and say, of course, this is the facts of existence. So this is the first noble truth. There is suffering. The Buddha was right, wasn't he? Now, we can make it worse. We can make this physical pain worse by wishing it wasn't there or being angry, why me, etc. So we want to make it less worse. We want to remove the psychological pain in this. So we want to reduce that. So no resentment, no wishing it wasn't you, etc. More like just embracing it, and you also practicing loving kindness for yourself and also for others. If you can place your mind strongly on a topic which is uplifting, you may find a reduction of the pain in your body. So this is the way you can reduce pain, is by focusing strongly outside the body on a wholesome, uplifting object. In fact, almost any object that you can focus on will be helpful to you. Focus outside the body, and that the stronger your attention is, the greater the reduction in your pain. But if you can focus on a wholesome, like a spiritual or uplifting type of thing, like loving kindness or something, that is even better, and it is a profound pain reliever for you. So may you be well, happy and peaceful. We send you our goodwill, loving kindness, and just send us a picture so we can at least have a face behind who it is that we're radiating loving kindness to. Yeah.
Our next question is from the live stream from Clay in Denver, Colorado, United States. Dear Ajahn, if metta is the wish for the safety and well-being of beings, How does one navigate the sense of lack, knowing that all beings will never be safe, similar to the sense of lack that arises from sensual desire?
Well, it's not similar to the situation of sensual desire. So, first of all, the first beneficiary of loving kindness is the one who radiates it. So, irradiating loving kindness for beings is pleasant and an exalted emotion, which you immediately are the recipient of. Whether anybody else receives your radiation is another matter, but you will experience it yourself. So it's a dwelling. It's a place to dwell. It's a very fine, splendid mansion. A heavenly mansion is what it is. In the here and now, a dwelling, a divine dwelling. As to the ultimate transience of things, the ultimate unsatisfactory nature of things, metta doesn't make that go away. You can still have a lucid wisdom while experiencing a positive emotion that people in the temporal situation may be reduced. So we don't ignore the pain. We build buildings to live in. We get in out of the elements. We eat and we have medicine and clothing and so forth. So we endeavor not to inflict unnecessary suffering on ourselves or anybody else. In the meantime, we also know the bleak and ultimate truth that no matter how much medicine or whatever we have, eventually we die. And in the meantime, pain happens just incidentally from having a body. So those facts are not dismissed, but at the same time, the best possible situation in the midst of this can be produced. And so the striving for a positive existence is not opposite to the Buddha's message. It coincides with the Buddha's message, and he himself was full of loving kindness, spoke about it often, but did not lose sight of the fact that all is transient, unsatisfactory, and without essence or substance, without self, without a substantial self. So don't feel that these two things are in conflict. Yeah.
Our next question is from Anonymous in Kafar, Sabah, Israel. My 8-year-old nephew, who loves to meditate and hear about the Dhamma, is now facing violence at school. His parents are working on moving him to another school, but until that happens, I would like to offer him some advice on how to emotionally deal with the situation.
Well, there is a passage in the Dhammapada. I think it's the third and fourth stanzas. And you might, I don't know how he'll receive this, but you tell him it's a story about a person who was having difficulties with people and they were hard on them and so forth. And so the saying is, he beat me, he abused me, he threw me down and robbed me. Live with such thoughts and you live in anger. He beat me, he abused me, he threw me down and robbed me. Abandon such thoughts and live in goodwill, free from the pain of anger. So what is the best response when somebody beats you and abuses you and throws you down and robs you? We can get ourselves out of the situation if possible, and I'm sure he's quite eager to change schools, and those parents should be quite eager to get him out of that situation. However, he should be taught, don't dwell on those memories, because those memories will sour your life. if you react in fury to it, in sadness to it, that's how it continues. And that's your enemies love it when you are angry and saddened by their actions. So you don't want to make your enemies happy. You choose not to be angry, not to be sad about it. And that will defeat your enemies. And also will give you a system which will go through your entire life to the very last day of your life and will be effective in all situations. If you can learn to do this, if you can learn not to have resentment, anger, sadness over people who are abusive or violent, then you know a way out. If you don't do this, then you will have trauma. You will keep replaying it in your mind. It will sadden you. It will depress you. And so it is worse than the people who are abusive to you. So there is a choice to make in life and a skill about how to respond to these situations. If you can learn it at 8 years old, you will be immunized for the rest of your life, and you will know a divine secret. And also you will be able to share that with others. So give it a shot. See if you can repeat those stanzas and see if he can understand that he can go free in the midst of this. Yeah.
Our next question is from the live stream from No One Everyone. Dear Ajahn Sona, I cannot understand how it is that the name of the next Buddha is already known, despite the fact that Buddhism rejects determinism. Only in a deterministic world would it be possible to accurately see into future events and describe them with impeccable precision, wouldn't it?
Well, that's a very good question. And of course, we're confronted with this in Philosophy 101. They usually have a class in free will and determinism. Most people walk around, if they haven't had training in logic and so forth, they walk around thinking that they have free will. And some religions teach this. Christianity teaches you've got free will, and at the same time you're determined. So there's all kinds of, it's very difficult to deal with in logic. From a Buddhist point of view, we would say you are not determined, but you are conditioned. And the process of the arrival of a Buddha is that one has fulfilled a whole series of developments which increase the probability of becoming a Buddha. So that before one is a Buddha, one is a Bodhisattva, an enlightenment seeker. And when the amount of practices have accumulated to a great degree, then it becomes virtually certain that one will become the next Buddha. So this is a process where you're putting in causes. So this is what we are, instead of a whimsical God making things happen, we would say in Buddhism that things happen for a reason. There are causes, and this is when you practicing your own path, your spiritual path, you are not hoping for the whims of an external agent. You are not praying to an external agent to relieve you of your problems and burdens. You instead are putting in the causes that will result in that. And if you put in the right causes, the results must occur. And if you don't put in the right causes, the results can't occur. So that the idea of this next Buddha, of course, the knowledge of this is only available to a few people with great. This next Buddha, the Maitreya, so-called Maitreya, is a very fragmentary kind of idea. It's not a main part of the main structure of the suttas. But there is a kind of an idea that there is one more Buddha to go in this world cycle, and even has a name, which is Maitreya in Pali, and in Sanskrit they call him Maitreya. And so that's the idea. It's not predetermined. So this is one thing we find from right effort. The sixth factor of the Eightfold Path is called right effort. And the Buddha says, monks, make effort. I would not tell you to make effort, monks, if you could not make effort. But because you can make effort, monks, therefore I say, make effort. So it means that the Buddha rejected the idea of rigid determination. And there were philosophers at the time, by the way, contemporaries of the Buddha, who held to the idea of rigid predetermination, and that there's all of your efforts are illusory, and there's nothing you can do. Everything is caused from the past. And so we have two actual causes, the past, but also the present. So there's a horizontal causal principle, and then there's a vertical causal principle. The vertical one is the past, but then you're reacting to the present as well. So the present is playing into some of the causes that you're experiencing. So the Buddha rejects rigid predetermination, but does not reject conditioning. And also, there seems to be, if you have an awareness of the sophisticated causal principles in the universe, you can have accurate predictions of the future. Notice that they have these people in sports and in music and so forth, they're called scouts, who go to a high school basketball thing, and they see talent, and they pick that kid out and say, this is the next great basketball player. And sure enough, turns out it is. How can they do that? Is that predetermination? Is that rigid determination? How can that happen? Because a lot of the causes for greatness have been put in, the nature of the athleticism in the body and the training, etc. So this happens all the time, where people make sure predictions about the next superstar and the next great athlete, and sometimes in intellectual pursuits as well, in mathematics and physics and chess players and so forth. Those who are really conversant with those areas can see that a being has a high degree of certainty about their future, because they have the mixture of causes. Maybe not absolute. Sometimes a brilliant prodigy dies or something happens to them. But in the spiritual case, it's just carried to a higher degree, where people have great lucidity and clarity about these things, and have say that it's a virtual certainty. So that's how I explain this. We have this conversation going on in modern times: free will or predetermination. Neither is the case. Your will is not free, and you're not rigidly predetermined, although logic would influence you to believe that. At the same time, at the emotional level, we can walk around and say, I believe that everything is predetermined, and at the same time, it does not affect you emotionally. You go about your business making decisions all the time, and you have this strange feeling that you could have chosen something else. You could have chosen strawberry ice cream rather than mint ice cream. Yeah.
Borough, Massachusetts, United States. How does the understanding of Nibbana change from one path to another? In other words, what more is seen about the nature of things that allows those further fetters to drop off?
Well, I like the first way when you said feathers that drop off. Fetters that drop off. Fetters are chains or bonds that fall away. So let me just explain what that person just said. It's if you're in the inner Buddhist thing, it's perfectly clear what they said, but not everybody who's watching understands. So how do the paths change, Nibbana change in terms of the paths? What are we talking about here? There are 4 stages of enlightenment, and each one is considered a path and a fruition. Each stage of enlightenment has a path to it. And when you attain it, after that, there is the fruits of that experience. You get results from that experience. And in each stage of these 4 stages of enlightenment, they all proceed in a systematic way. So these are universal things. It's not an individual matter. And so the first stage of enlightenment, 3 of these fetters, not feathers, but fetters, drop away. The second stage, 2 fetters are further weakened, but no further fetters drop away, but 2 are weakened further, and that is anger and greed. And so then how do you get to the next phase? So these 2 phases are usually by just listening to Dhamma, reflecting on Dhamma, and having an understanding, and the understanding of that rises in a powerful moment where your mind is completely focused on it, and suddenly you get it, and you, in some sense, are not the person that you were a few seconds ago. You are transformed by a new way of looking at reality. It's kind of like a mirage where you think you see water on the surface of the highway, and the shimmering water mirage on a highway. And children see this as, like, well, there's water there. No, and then as you drive towards it, it keeps going away from you. So eventually, as you grow up, you understand that's not water, that's a shimmering light effect. It's a mirage. Now that changes your whole attitude to reality. By the way, in the observation of animal behavior in the suttas, they say that deer see that mirage as well, and they'll quite often run towards that water until they die, thinking that they will get relief from their thirst. So that they don't transcend the deception. A human can transcend that mirage deception. They can say, even though my eyes tell me that is the case, it is not the case. So those are the transitions of stages of enlightenment. You're seeing what you formerly thought was real and substantial as a kind of a mirage. So between the second and the third stage of enlightenment, so people sometimes pop through all 4 of these things in a few minutes, and they attain full enlightenment. In the time of the Buddha, this seemed to be the case, And then some people just attain the first stage and they get stuck there. They are not stuck forever, and they can't reverse it. They're pretty well on the doorstep of something that must proceed. They're certain to attain full enlightenment after the first stage, but it may take some time. They need to just keep listening to Dhamma, and that maybe push them to the second stage. But the third stage, if they get stuck in the second stage, the third stage is usually attain concentration, jhana. They don't have enough power in their mind to make the facts real to them. The description of reality is still just superficial knowledge, and it hasn't broken through to a deep transformative level. So they They're stuck there practicing samadhi. And that's the purpose. So samadhi is the 8th factor of the Eightfold Path. So when one wants to push on, one goes back to samadhi. And the natural result of this is that because they've already heard the facts, they've already heard the Dhamma, they already have heard of the Four Noble Truths. So inevitably when they do this samadhi, what naturally arises from it is wisdom or insight. So the Buddha says, for one who has samadhi, as the jhanas, there is no need to wish, may wisdom arise. Wisdom naturally rises and swells out of samadhi. Now I would caution that it's not merely samadhi, it's sama samadhi, right concentration. It means that the concentration you're experiencing, the samadhi you're experiencing, is informed by knowledge of the Eightfold Path, the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. And that's why knowledge arises out of it. The power of the mind, you don't have enough clarity and power in your mind to push you break through to the next stage. And the 4th stage is, again, aided by samadhi and reflection. And that's the subtlest fetters fall away. The last 5 fetters fall away. So that is in brief, and I have given a talk on the YouTube channel called 4 Stages of Enlightenment, and I will give you details in there, so please watch that.
Our next question is from the live stream from John in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. What is the significance of the full moon and other lunar days in Buddhism and in spiritual practice in general? How do these days affect our meditation practice?
Well, the moon, the lunar calendar is the calendar of the entire ancient world, and it's because that clock is fairly easy to keep track of. The solar clock is just the day, right? And then there's an annual clock, and then there's a monthly clock. Month is month. So the full moon and the new moon occur are biweekly, or every 2 weeks. So we the monastic sangha recites the rules of discipline for the monks on the full moon and the new moon. And at that time also lay people are often invited to come to the monastery and ask questions, practice meditation with the monastic community. And that's called the Uposatha day, the new moon and the full moon. As far as the psychological effect of the full moon or the new moon, that's not particularly, there's no references to that in the suttas. So there are whole theories about how the moon affects your mind and so forth, but that is not played up much in the suttas. It's merely a big clock in the sky, which gives you a regular, fairly regular situation, because what happens is, of course, the full moon and the new moon happen 14 days and 15 days apart. So sometimes it's 2 weeks, sometimes it's 15 days. And so we have a calendar from the monastic sangha, and the lay people keep track of this as well. When are the full moon and the new moon days? And then we all agree on whether it's the 14th or the 15th day. And we get together and practice that. But it's really just a large clock in the sky. Yeah.
Our next question is from Eugene in Moscow, Russia. Dear Ajahn, I was asked to give an interview on education and employment for youth for a local magazine in Russia, Republic of Tuva. One of the questions asked is, quote, what is happiness? I want to use this opportunity to provide an answer for them from wise people at Birken Monastery. Could you please share an answer for thousands of lay people who will read this magazine? What is happiness, and how can they gradually strive for it in a right way?
Well, we should reform the question: what are the kinds of happiness, and which is the best kind? Because there are a number of different types of happiness. So one of them is simply sensory happiness, like when you're thirsty and you finally have something to drink. That's a form of happiness. And if you're hungry, to have food, it makes you happy. And then simple things like praise from others, and to succeed at some task. These are forms humans regularly respond to. I think even animals respond to all of these. That's a kind of basic happiness. But that type of happiness is subject to the whims of fate and situations. So if you rely for your happiness on being praised, and then somebody blames you instead, then you won't be happy. So we want to go to the next level. We want to say, is there a form of happiness which is stable in the midst of praise and blame, success and failure, good fortune, bad fortune, fame and obscurity? So these are called the 8 worldly winds. The wind blows this way and it blows that way. Can you find stability in the midst of the changing patterns of the wind, the changing fortunes in your life? So that type of happiness would be a superior happiness. It's more stable and lasting. So that's quite often what people don't know, but most of the higher philosophical traditions, not modern philosophy, which is primarily concerned with language analysis and stuff, but the older philosophy, as found in the Greek philosophers, and of more or less how to find the good, the true, and the beautiful in life. Attitudes which will allow you to proceed in life through different circumstances while maintaining a substantial happiness. So this is called wisdom. And that's a training which transcends these simple happinesses, because sometimes you get the ice cream, but it falls off and onto the sidewalk. And you'll see kids, sometimes that happens. They lose their attention and the ice cream falls out of their hand and they are just devastated. That delicious ice cream is now on the sidewalk. The dog, of course, is happy because it's quite happy to lick it right off the sidewalks. But notice the difference between the dog and the human. Like, no, dear, you can't lick it off the sidewalk. The dog, okay, go ahead. So we have levels of beings. So the animal level can't do that philosophical happiness. It is stuck in more or less just food type happiness, maybe some good friendship happiness. And then the human, it must arise above this animal level of happiness to a higher level of happiness. The next happiness from just sensory happiness is intellectual happiness, appreciation of ideas and so forth. And that quite often people think that's the highest, like the experience of art and music, poetry, science even. They think that's the highest. But there is levels beyond this, and that is with this area called wisdom itself, which is an emotional transformation. So the emotional body is freed from the immediate circumstances and is lifted up transcends the situation, stays light and buoyant through all kinds of different circumstances, and then is freed from dependency on the sensory happiness. So these are stages of happiness. So that's in this article. You really need to say, there's no denying. Ice cream is good at one level, but is there anything beyond ice cream? Indeed, there are things beyond ice cream. Yeah.
Our next question is from the live stream from Chugao. I know that disciplines shall be viewed as an aid, but I have trouble internalizing this perspective. How can I overcome this and naturally feel that disciplines are my aid?
I think discipline for its own sake is a dry thing, you know. We do our best when we love things. We get great results when we love things. And we can do fantastic things. So what we're seeking is the good, the true, and the beautiful. So infuse yourself with that. Say, what I'm looking for is truth, goodness, and beauty. And that will be your motivation. But I need to get there. So sometimes we climb mountains to see the view, don't we? We don't just do it to sweat up the side of a mountain, but we actually climb it to see the view. When we see the view, it was worth it, wasn't it? So we got to harness this, but not make it a grim exercise. So it's important to try to infuse the process with some joy. So the moment you don't get to joy by grief, they're mutually exclusive. Sometimes, of course, we can't just indulge our impulses, because we know that we've already decided sometimes that it has bad results. You know, this is like addiction, drug addiction, and all kinds of addictions. The person even can explicitly tell you why they shouldn't do this again. They will never do it again, and then they go ahead and do it again because impulse. So we have to talk ourselves into an aspiration to higher things and the beauty. And that's a state of faith, because you're not sure that you can achieve it. You might believe, well, somebody else seems to be blissfully happy all the time. I'd like to be that way. Can I do it? Is it just them, or can I do it? So whether you like it or not, there's a period of walking through the fog of uncertainty, and that's called faith. You give it a shot. And by the way, it's quite an adventure to not follow the large herd who are seeking shallow things. To go against that is an act of faith. And but it's a great adventure when you go away from the normal, easy access happinesses of people to aspire to a higher type of happiness. It's an act of faith, and it's at the same time, it's a gripping adventure. So yes, you head out crossing the desert. Yeah. So I think we have time for one more question, Pia.
Okay. Ajahn, our final question will be from Anand in Conroe, Texas, United States. Ajahn Sona, how would one help a friend who has lost a child from a non-material perspective?
It depends on the person you're talking to. If they're very intelligent, and this is I've talked to quite a few people who have lost children, and it is it's the worst thing that can happen to a parent, and some people never get over it, right? But it's a bit of a shame to not be able to reclaim your life. So the basic message of the Buddha is this, that it's only conventional language that it was your child. That child isn't really yours. That child is property of Mother Nature, just as you are. That child is owned and operated by nature itself, biological principles and so forth. And we just say, it's my child, it's my mother, it's my child, it's my this, my that. But because the child can be taken away at any time without consultation, it isn't your child. It was never your child. You were just to provide care for it as a temporary situation, with no illusion of possession. You don't possess or control anybody, including your own body. Your body is not yours. Property of Mother Nature. So one simile is that you regard your body and the bodies of other as a car borrowed from a friend. And you get different kinds of bodies and so forth, but it's like if you borrow a car and your friend says, "Oh, I really like that car, really snazzy," and you might have some pride, say, "Oh yeah, it's my car." But actually, it's not your car. It's just you borrowed it from a friend. So whether it's a snazzy car or a beater, it's just borrowed from a friend. So your body sometimes is a snazzy or a beater. There's no point in getting all ego-y about it. You don't even know how can you tell me how you see? How do you see? How do you smell? How do you taste? How do you hear? How do you touch? How do you remember? How do you plan? You can't tell me any of that. You didn't make any of that. It's not your product. How did your child grow? How does your child eat? How does your child see, smell, taste, touch? You don't have no idea because it's not your child. The child has no idea how this happens. You have no idea how this happens. Not yours. So that's the reality. That's the basic truth of life. None of it is ours. It's out of control. It's not us. It's not yours. It's not a possession. These things are around for a while and then disappear. And so that's the only way we get full relief from the tragedy of mortality. You know somebody a long time and they die and they're gone. And we forgot that everything's out of control and that none of this is our doing, that it's just a process of nature. So that's the only way to think about it. And that can provide instant relief sometimes if the person understands, gee, that child was not mine. I can't even get over a headache, let alone own a child. I can't own a child. It's property of Mother Nature. And Mother Nature gives, Mother Nature takes away. So that's how we think about it. So we will bring this Q&A live stream to an end. And perhaps we'll be back on next Sunday.